Why? Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
Welcome to DnDTime Talks. It's the show that Pete and I do.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yep.
We talk about D&D related things, including...
It's very well named.
Including, but not limited to, Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, which is what we're going to be covering tonight. I think this is going to be our last night on Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes for a while. I say Mordenkainen, I think it's Mordenkainen is the right way to say it. But it's just so ingrained in
Spoiler alert. Accidentally just did something I didn't know would do what it did.
What happened?
I might have spoiled one of the monsters. That's okay, though. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
So Jeremy, how are you going?
How am I going? I'm going okay.
I'm in complete disarray over
Sorry,
here.
I was just befuddled by Reflected 10.8. Wash me of my sins, sweet Pete and Jeremy jazz. Well, you know what, Reflected 10.8, your sins have been cleansed. I'm doing good. I'm doing okay. I'm pretty relaxed. I actually recently found out that as part of Wizards of the Coast's fan policy, you are allowed to use their official IP, i.e. their graphics and all of their art, as long as you do not paywall your content. So that's something cool. You might see some more cool stuff on the stream in the future. We'll see. Who knows? I don't know. I think Avalon already calling me out for my heresy.
Wait, Jerry, I didn't hear what you said. I guess you can't repeat it.
Did I just cut out? Wait, what? Can you not hear me?
Oh, no, I meant the thing. No, I heard you. I mean, I didn't hear what you said about that was heresy.
Oh, no, Avalon called me out in chat because, well, you didn't see Pete because you're blind. Anywho, welcome everybody to DnDTime Talks. How you doing, Pete?
I'm fine. I was in disarray because you told me that we had 13 seconds left. And I didn't realize the thing had even started yet. So I was still.
I did.
Oh, I mean, it's my fault.
2 minutes when we started.
No, it's my fault for sure.
All right, well, as long as it's not my fault, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but I'm just getting all my stuff in order, and now my stuff is in. My ducks are in a row. My chickens are in a line. My wretcheds are in a line.
Yeah, and speaking, well, actually, before we jump too far, on this episode of DnDTime Talks, Pete and I are going to talk about our favorite monsters from the Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, Beastiary. We each picked 3 creatures that are kind of our favorites from the collection. I'm pretty stoked about mine, and I know Pete's a big fan of his. So yeah, we're just going to go through, talk about them, see what you guys have to think. We're going to talk about first of all, how fucking cool they are.
Yeah.
Secondly, we're going to talk about cool ways you could use them in your campaign that could be fun and interesting. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. There are a ton of really cool monsters that these guys are way more than just stat blocks. They're really cool, engaging things that you can build entire campaigns around. Or you can make really, really silly one-off encounters. But, you know, they're great.
Yeah, so as much as we're going to be talking about like the specific monsters we love, we're going to be really focusing on like how we think you could use those monsters to fuel really cool stories, instead of just, you know, being obstacles, like not just like, you know, random encounter, put in 5 wretched, which is one of the ones. Oh wait, we're not doing the wretched, so I can talk about it. Putting in 5 wretched as, you know, to challenge at a certain level. We're talking about like how to really make them, contextualize them, and make them feel cool in your world. In our opinions, the ones that we thought really did that. And so even though this is going to be kind of DM focused as we're talking about, you know, running monsters, we're also just going to be talking about like how to make, you know, some good storytelling stuff, which we think is going to be, you know, good for players as well. So
yeah, at some point during every player's young life, they try their hand in the DM seat. And I think it's, you know, not a bad thing to learn a little bit here and there. So I guess without further ado, let's dive into tonight's topic. I mean, I'm really excited about our first monster tonight. This is one of Pete's. Basically, we're just going to go back and forth. Pete's mine. That being said, we both love all these monsters. They're all freaking awesome.
Jeremy made some great picks, and obviously I made some great picks.
They were okay. But I think we're going to start with arguably the most classic D&D monster of all time, even if you didn't know it was a monster. The big red face on the original Dungeons and Dragons book, the sacred statue of Moloch. So, are you all familiar with this? The book that I'm talking about, the big demon, red fat demon with the rogues prying the gem out of his eyes.
I did not make that connection.
Yeah, they're the same thing.
Oh man, and this was one that I really loved too. I wish I'd picked up on that little piece of lore.
Well, hopefully you're all familiar with it to some degree. Otherwise, I think it's the red box, maybe. Maybe I'm wrong. No, it's not the red box. That is a dragon on it. Oh well.
What you gonna do? Anyway, the thing that this was my first pick. This was the Eidolon and the Sacred Statue, which are two monsters that work almost completely. You cannot really have one without the other, so they're kind of basically one monster. And so to start with, let's talk a little bit about what an Eidolon is. An Eidolon is just sort of this zealous spirit who believed very fervently in a particular ideal or a god, or worshipped maybe one of the greater devils or demons, which we'll talk about, I think, one of those later on. And an Eidolon is that spirit. That deity has granted an individual power and kept them alive as a spirit. And now they're used to guard a particularly important place to that deity. And the way they do so is by possessing something called a sacred statue, which is kind of the yang to the Eidolon's yin. And what the Eidolon does is it enters into the sacred statue and animates it and goes around and just beats people down with giant stone fists in the sacred statue, which is a pretty straightforward concept. And this is the reason why I picked the Eidolon. The thing that really... Oh, hey, Mr. Plunder, subscribe. Thank you very much, Plunder.
Your support is greatly appreciated, as always.
Much love. So the thing that really drew me to the Eidolon, and that I really love about the Eidolon, for the first thing, is its flexibility. The Eidolon, unlike pretty much most of the stuff in this book, doesn't have a lot of really deep lore behind it. It really gives you a lot of room to kind of create your own story. It's just someone who once worshipped a god and now protects something is the Eidolon thing, which has a huge variability. An Eidolon can be of any alignment, can be working in any place. You can throw an Eidolon into any kind of dungeon that has pretty much any purpose, as long as there's some being that would want to protect that thing. So for starters, it's just a really simple and versatile kind of tool in your quiver.
Yeah. In addition to that, it's really cool, and also because it's an undead, you can have a lawful good undead creature, which that's something that doesn't show up in a lot more of Dungeons and Dragons. Most of the undead are just straight up, either evil, lawful evil, etc., chaotic evil.
Are there any other examples of that?
Oh, I'm sure there are, but they escape me at the moment. But I think one of the coolest things about the Eidolon / Sacred Statue, right, Pete, is it's not just a stat block.
Exactly.
A lot of monsters, you look at a giant, for example, and obviously giants are big, they smack people, and their stats kind of tend to reflect that. Some of the higher level giants get some cool magic, but you take a hill giant, the hill giant is just a big fat monster that hits people with his club. The Eidolon is a set piece. It's part of, I think, the setting where you're running this adventure. You know what I mean, Pete?
Oh, yeah. And that was that's kind of the reason that I really fell in love with the Eidolon too. Because the Eidolon on its own, for example, it doesn't have any damaging abilities. All it has is one action where it can fear people and cause people to run away from it. And then it has the ability to possess statues. and a bunch of different resistances and stuff. But what the Eidolon does, and the kind of way that the thing that I really wanted to do with this monster is the Eidolon is a dungeon unto itself, because it has as many lives basically as there are sacred statues in the dungeon. So the Flannel Plug calling you out for making fun of those hill giants.
Oh, wow.
So you could have a dungeon, for example, that is filled with sacred statues where the whole dungeon is them running around chasing this little spirit that can fly in between walls and trying to lock it down while it's running around, kind of ominously foreboding that they need to leave this place and that they will, it will destroy you if you do not exit the domain that it is protecting. Additionally, and this is one of the other things I love about it, is that sacred statue, anything can be a sacred statue.
Yeah.
They have a particular stat block for it here, which is, it's a lot like a giant, really. It's just a big thing that hits very hard and throws rocks and punches you with its stone fists. You can take literally any stat block in the game and be like, this is now a sacred statue.
Ta-da!
Yep, you can just take a few things from the regular sacred statue, be like, yeah, I'll give it the same resistances. Maybe it can't fly because it's a giant piece of stone. I'll give it the ghostly inhabitant feature, which is what allows the Eidolon to possess it. And then there you go. You have a sacred statue of any challenge rating, of any level, any move set that has really unique abilities. And you can have a mission that's just the Eidolon flying around the temple, doing all sorts of different things and just diving into different statues, utilizing all these powers. It's just a really versatile foe. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and it's also really cool that when the Eidolon's out of the statue, it actually has no damaging abilities. So, as player characters, you're literally just slaughtering this spirit if it's not in the statue. So you smash its statue to pieces, it jumps to a couple of statues, hard-earned fight, and it's just, they're out of statues. At that point, what do? At that point, I imagine the Eidolon just pleads with the adventurers to leave. At that point, are you cruel enough to just cut it down? I don't know.
Especially the lawful good Eidolon.
Yeah. Oh, exactly, right? You need to get into this temple for some important reason to get the MacGuffin, but the Temple Guardian will not have it. I don't know. I really love this creature. Its versatility in terms of it can be anything. The fact that it is a dungeon unto itself. You can Eidolon. Yeah, Eidolon. Eidolon?
Eidolon is what I've been...
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, I just think it's really cool, right? Because you can it's the whole dungeon. It's the centerpiece to an entire adventure that you go on. And I just think that's really sweet. I just think that's awesome, especially since it can travel through walls. But yeah, that was Beastie number 1. Eidolon is pretty sweet. Now, what was number 2? Was number 2 the Alcolith?
I think we're doing the Alcolith next.
Oh, well.
This was your first pick.
Yeah, I've just thrown the Alcolith up on screen. You should be able to see it under the Twitch chat. I don't know how terrible that looks, so let me know if it looks terrible. But yeah, I mean, basically, the Alcolith is it's a demon, meaning it's from the abyss. It is a really interesting demon, though. Unlike most demons, it's not your stereotypical big monster. Hey, can't really see it. Let me see if I can shrink and move the chat a little bit. Anyway, it's not like your stereotypical demon, which is this malicious creature of kind of knowing evil intent. It's, I don't know. It's different than that. It's a cool fungus kind of creature. It's related to Dweeblex, the sweetest demon lord. You can kind of see it. It's the green fungus all along this windowsill. And the lore of these creatures is one of the reasons I love it so much, right? It is kind of the first, or really not the first, but it is the harbinger of imminent demonic incursion. So this, in Mordenkaisen's Tome of Foes, they talk a ton about what demonic incursion is. Basically, it's the gradual corruption of the land. And unlike most demons, which just want to go and destroy stuff, all this guy wants to do is make his home. The Alkalith, what it does is when it gets into the material plane, it finds an opening, like a portal, a window, a doorway, and it just kind of sets itself up. And over time, it gently attunes to the abyss, and the opening becomes a portal eventually. This monster is so cool to me because this monster is not just the thing you fight, it's also the setting. It's the environment. It is where you are. Case in point, the way I would use this, or one of the ways I'd use this creature, is so the party has been tracking down MacGuffin and has come to the ancient ruins. Or better yet, they've come back to a town, right? That has recently been destroyed, all of the inhabitants slaughtered. And as you're walking through this like burning town, there's all sorts of signs of demonic incursion. And at the other end of the town, they come to maybe the house of an NPC they know. And it's as they arrive, they can hear inside the town, inside the house, the sound of like claws and snarling. And they see this wretched green fungus overgrown over everything. And when they go in to look in, they look through the doorway and they see just a simple little dretch, a very low challenge rating basic demon. Not to know that the fungus all around the doorway is about to spring its trap on them. I don't know. I did a terrible job with that.
No, I think that painted a very good picture, Jeremy. I mean, also the thing that I like about the Alkalith is one of the pieces of lore I read about them is that once an Alkalith is kind of on your plane, it's kind of a sign that like, oh, things are already awful. And this is the final stage to things being really terrible. Also, like, I really like the idea of part of the Alkalith's strategy, because when I was thinking about using this guy, I feel like the way I would want to do it is just have them, like, I'm picturing the Alkalith almost, like, spreading up, like, even larger into, like, the walls of the inside of the interior, and they have you walk through the actual portal, and then you're fighting them in the abyss, which has all these other implications. I picture them, like, trying to get you to walk through that portal. And I don't know about like what your thoughts on this are, but I feel like when you walk into the abyss, I feel like you know that you're no longer home immediately. Like there's just something different. Which just that strange dread sounds really cool to me about the Alkalith. Just that like you walk through the portal and then maybe it's created, maybe there's like a space on the other side that still looks kind of like the material plane because of how close it is, but you know that there's just something is now wrong. Yeah,
it is just things are no longer right. But yeah, I don't know. It was such a cool creature to me. It really stuck out. And yeah, I mean that's just about it, really. It's just sweet.
I mean, you love you some Dweeblex.
I love Dweeblex. Dweeblex is such a cool demon lord. I should have talked about Dweeblex, but you know, well,
we can talk about Dweeblex though. We got time, I think.
Well, we'll see what happens.
All right.
But yeah, Alkalith, super cool, really good, especially if you're playing in like, if you want to start up a campaign where there's going to be demons, is like a heavy kind of theme. Really good, real good choice to use these guys. So I think next, Pete, what are we going to talk about? The Skulk?
The Skulk. This was my number one. This was my number one pick in Tome of Foes. This is my favorite monster that I saw, and it's called the Skulk. And what the Skulk is kind of a monster that's pretty heavily based in the Shadowfell, and it's someone who has essentially lost their identity and has lost it so much to the point where they have become invisible. They don't remember who they are, and they're just kind of this hollow reflection that just kind of walks around just doing nothing. They're chaotic neutral. So, sometimes they'll attack people and kill them. Other times, they're just kind of wandering lost, not sure what to do. Which isn't really that exciting on the surface when you just say that. It's kind of like, well, if there's just an invisible dude, I can run an invisible stalker or something like that. But here's where Wizards, I think, absolutely crushed it. And this is what really just inspired me to want to use the Skulk. Their invisibility is called fallible invisibility. Their invisibility can be circumvented by three things. One, the Skulk appears as a drab, smooth-skinned humanoid if its reflection can be seen in a mirror or on another surface. Two, the Skulk appears as a dim, translucent form in the light of a candle made of fat rendered from a corpse whose identity is unknown. And third, and the most brutal of the three, humanoid children aged 10 and under can see through this invisibility, which is so cool.
It's just so creepy in the best way.
There's just so much there that you can do, and I wish Wizards did that on more monsters. After reading this one, I felt like every other monster I read was like inadequate, that they didn't have these little things, because each of those, like, those aren't important to the way the monster plays. Those are important to the way that you tell this monster's story.
And this is one hell of a story.
Oh yeah. You might have you might have for the most obvious thing there is to just have the small child with the imaginary friend that no one believes is actually there, just kind of stalking in their room until they reach out their hand and touch him. You have maybe the kind of the strange wizard who like goes around hunting these creatures, who's digging up corpses for strange reasons and rendering the fat into candles so he can shine the light and see the things that he's hunting, which is a whole kind of strange thing for the players to get into, and it feels like a monster hunt when you have to go on that kind of very specific the Skulk is protecting the kid from the Vanderhop. I mean, that might be. There's so many cool things that you could do with this. And Jeremy, well, you had one in particular, because one of the things they talked about in the lore was that village. I know that this was a cool idea.
One of the things they talked about in the lore segment about this monster, right, is they gave an example setting where you may encounter skulks in the material plane. And it is an example where a bunch of skulks would move into just a village, just a random village, kill all of the inhabitants, and then take up hollow representations of those people's lives in the material plane. So they'd be, they do laundry and hang up drab, colorless clothing. They till the ground but plant no crops, and they move livestock from pen to pen to pen until they starve. I just, reading that was like, oh my God, inspiration overload, because I just immediately thought of this awesome encounter where the party is just kind of wandering in the countryside and they come across exactly that setting. They come across, it's got the nice old kind of dusty cobblestone road. There's the rancid smell of rotting flesh from the livestock. But as they see, as a sort of like dark, overcast day, they see a slight wind kind of blow. They feel a slight wind blow through the town, and they see all of the drab, colorless clothing just kind of flowing in the wind. And as they kind of walk around and investigate, they find nothing killed the livestock. They simply starved. They find no signs of any of the villagers or townsfolk. And as time goes on, they start to get very uncomfortable. They start to get very uneasy, as though they're being watched. And then from above, there's a crack of thunder and a drip of rain. And as it begins to rain, the puddles begin to form all along the cobblestone roads. And from slight shimmering reflections, you see the hollow skulks approaching. It's just this awesome dramatic tension of just, you don't see the creatures, you see their reflections in the puddles as hundreds of them converge upon you. Like, such an intense moment.
That It's such a cool monster. For me, when you like kind of picture me, that the thing I imagined was you looking into the puddle, and you make eye contact with a skulk also looking into the puddle, and that was the thing. And then you see its head turn up to where you are, but you can't, like, I can just...
But you don't see it.
But you don't see the head. You just see in the reflection his head now looking at you. And this, like, understanding that now that you know he is there, they are no longer okay with you being there. Like, just, there's...
Nope. Just noping on out of there.
Oh, it's such an incredible... Oh, man. It's my favorite monster in the book. And like I was saying, I wish Wizards did that with everyone to create these flavorful... That's just such a flavorful mechanic.
Yeah, right. Exactly, Roger. Like, they aren't objectively evil creatures. They're chaotic neutral. Like, the skulks aren't just forces of evil, and they aren't undead either. They're just hollow creatures, hollow men.
People looking for identity.
Yeah. Another really cool note about the skulk is that you can actually summon skulks. If you
I didn't actually know that.
Oh, yes. You can give the skulk a piece of your personality, and it will serve you for a day on the material plane.
That's a really interesting... Oh, man, they're just such a good monster.
Pete, after that day, it doesn't return to the Shadowfell. That's how the skulks get loosed across the world. It's so cool. You give a little of yourself to control this hollow creature. I just love that idea. It's so, like, viscerally satisfying to me. But
agreed.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all I got. Agreed.
And another one of those. I mean, do you gonna keep talking about the skulk? Yeah, more.
I didn't have much else to talk about on the skulk.
But yeah, I mean, they're just such a cool. You know, actually, there's one thing I want to say because now I'm on that summoning thing.
Yeah, it's just so good.
This lore, it's so good that every little thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing. Their inspiration out the ass, and it's wonderful. So, like, I can just now imagine, right, the villain set at the beginning of the adventure, at the beginning of this, like, little campaign arc. And he's this, like, very boisterous character, full of flamboyance and personality, and truly evil. And by the end of the adventure, his skulk servants have taken so many pieces of what this creature is that by the end, they're just this hollow force of just abject evil that you have to fight. I just think that's so cool. A villain that's truly giving up bits of themselves to reach this level.
Oh, Jeremy, now that you're talking about that, in that moment, like at the end, he's just a skulk.
Yeah,
he's just a really buff skulk. He becomes invisible. Like, oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah, right.
What a good monster.
It's just, was it worth it? Probably not.
Probably not.
But yeah, it's sweet. It's so cool. Skulk's the best.
So we are doing. Wait, is the next one the best monster?
The next monster, I'm sure you all have seen. No, it's not Sibriex. The next monster is, in my opinion, the best monster, not only in the book, but in all of Dungeons and Dragons. If you read fantasy novels and are familiar with Brandon Sanderson, you may be familiar with a similar kind of creature in the Khandra. However, this version in Dungeons and Dragons is much more abjectly malicious. This is... I'm going to get rid of the Twitch chat on the screen for just a moment, just to emphasize how freaking awesome this is going to look when it shows up. Oh, wait, where'd it go? Wait, that's the wrong thing. I'm bad. This is the Oblex. And the Oblex is about the most brutal, badass monster that I have ever heard of. That's ever been, in my opinion. It's so cool. It is.
We're talking the backstory.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Let me quickly. Yeah. So the Oblex was a new creature with 5th edition of the Dragons with Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and actually, it wasn't created by Mike Morrells or Jeremy Crawford or the developers of Dungeons and Dragons. Instead, it was created by a kid. As part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, his wish was to help the Dungeons and Dragons team design a monster for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And his monster is this. It's absolutely terrifying.
It's so good.
This kid is a hero. The Oblex is an ooze. It is an incredibly hyper-intelligent, sentient ooze. Its job is, what it does is it scours the world in search of intelligent creatures to eat their memories. The lore kind of hints and says that it was related to the Mind Flayers, perhaps created by the Mind Flayer experiments. Perhaps it is an agent of Dweeblex, the Great Ooze, the Great Ooze Demon Lord, in an attempt to make itself more or actually sentient. Who knows? All I know is it's super, super cool. That was really badly phrased. I love the Oblex. This monster is just so awesome. This is what happens when you piss off a flump. Nice plan.
So, did you mention the bait? No,
I got too distracted. I haven't said anything about what it actually does yet. I'm sorry. So,
it's extremely good. So, one of the things that, or not one of the things, the really defining thing that the Oblex does is they kind of attack people and then they eat their memories. And through those memories, they learn and they get kind of stronger. They gain access to like the personality of the individual, but they never lose their identity as the Oblex. So they're always kind of ever consuming, ever trying to grow, ever trying to get more memories and increase their intelligence. What you're looking at on the screen there is the Elder Oblex, which is like its kind of most evolved state. But there are kind of lesser ones. There's like the smaller one that doesn't actually have that kind of sentience. And then they slowly grow and become stronger and learn like powerful magic and kind of improve. And do you want to tell them about the coolest thing about the Oblex?
The Oblex is defined by its ability called sulfurous impersonation. The figure that you see on that screen, that's not some lady who's just like, I just escaped from the ooze. No, that is a part of the ooze. Every time the ooze eats a creature's memories, which is its ability it has, eat memories. Every time it does that, it gains the ability to create a impersonation of them, exact and perfect to touch, to everything. It sounds identical, it looks identical, it is in every way the same creature, except that it is part of the Oblex. The only thing that you could ever do to tell it apart is a slight scent of sulfur, and it is tethered to the Oblex by a thin, slimy cord. I love this creature as a deceiver. I immediately started thinking of what are cool, weird ways I could use this creature in a campaign. I mean, my very
anglerfish.
Well, exactly right. My very first thought was a large, like, multi-story building, like a tavern or an inn, and every single creature in there is actually the Oblex. It's just there are little holes in the floor where the little gooey connections meet the creature's feet.
No one moves. Like, everyone kind of stays seated, like
more or less.
The bartender like just kind of stays behind the counter and like puts the drink down and makes you kind of walk over to get it. Like, oh, of course, that's so cool. The one that I thought of was I was imagining the head cultist of a cult of Dweeblex.
Oh yeah,
was my first one where they start out, I was imagining kind of like a 3-tiered thing where he's just the really charismatic minister that brings people in and talks about this idea of someday all becoming one and united as one great powerful being, and kind of like, you know, this positive message about how everyone is truly one collective. And then like the inner cultists, it's kind of like a typical cult of Dweeblex where they're like farming ooze and stuff like that. And then the ascended cultists become one with the priest. Like that was what I imagined. That was the adventure that I was kind of framing it. But there's just so much you can do. Yeah, there's just so much you can do with this guy.
I mean, yeah, like there's like the sky is the limit in terms of how crazy you can be with the Oblex. Like another great example that I may end up using in the future is like I thought of a little kid, right? He's just the Oblex has engulfed a child at some point, taken their memories, and has taken their kind of their place. And the kid just sits at the end of his wagon. It's like a big old Conestoga wagon. He's got his reins, which are just cleverly disguised by illusion magic. Those are actually his tendrils. And inside the wagon is actually this huge red monster. But he's just riding around with his horses. And I just love this is like a goofy NPC because I know this is a lawful evil monster, right? Experimented by mind flayers. I want to take the exception to it of like the friendly Oblex. They're like, oh, hey, fellas. You know, just a very friendly Oblex. Maybe the Oblex has engulfed so many good characters that its own personality has started to become corrupted to good. You know, I just think that would be so interesting and fun. And then when the party finds out and they're like, oh, I don't really want to kill this guy. Awkward. And speaking of kill this guy, this monster doesn't seem actually that terrifying. If you look at his the Oblex's attacks and its damage and everything, it's really not too threatening for a CR10 monster. It's only gonna have a +7 to hit. That's really not that high. It makes only 2 attacks that hit for I think an average of 24 damage. But that's not a ton for CR10. That's actually really low. This creature, at first glance, looks like it's a total pushover. You could just trash it. However, you'd be missing the point of the Oblex because one of the things the Oblex can do is it can cast the spell Charm Person at 5th level at will. Now, you're thinking like, all right, what does that mean? Well, what that means is the way Charm Person works is for every level above 1st, you can charm an additional person. That means before you even realize the Oblex is an enemy, when you're still interacting with its self impersonation, it's decided which of your party members it wants to eat. And it's going to charm the rest of you, so you can't attack it. And then it's going to 1v1 that party member and kill them. And you're going to watch because you can't do anything because you're charmed. That is what this creature does. This creature doesn't just outsmart you and trick you and manipulate you. This creature outplays you. This is how cruel can the DM be? And I don't know. I like it. I love that brutality.
Another thing I saw Roger Twy in chat mentioned, I see these guys facing off against Aboleth. That is actually part of the lore of the Oblex, is that they were created by mind flayers for whatever kind of dark purpose. They have that kind of aberrant influence. And there's a great quote in the book. I don't know if you remember it off the top of your head, Jeremy.
Oh God, you're throwing me under the bus. I'd have to take my book.
Hold on a second. I got it. It's fine.
Which one is it?
The Mordenkainen one. The Mordenkainen one about mind flayers unleash all manner of foul experiments upon the planes with little thought for the consequences. Here, though, I suspect another influence, Dweeblex. And the idea of Dweeblex being the thing that wants these is so terrifying.
Like that is a campaign right there, right? It's just this Dweeblex, this ultra powerful creature that is literally not sentient, is gaining sentience through these other oozes that it has sent out to steal the sentience of other creatures. That's just such a brutal, cool campaign, in my opinion. I just think that'd be so sweet.
I agree. So
what if it just absorbs dogs? Exactly, Flannelpug. Exactly.
That is the kind of thinking that is what makes this monster great.
Here's the thing, right? It just absorbs dogs, and you're just like, what is it going to do? It just has dogs. And then it creates 13 dogs and escapes on a dog sled, and you can't catch it because the dog sled's too fast. What up? Get out my level. But actually, that'd be hilarious. I think this monster there's so many purposes. It's goofy. It's horrifying. It's actually threatening in combat if you play it correctly. It's just awesome. And of course, it looks sick. Anything that can just create perfect copies of other people, so good.
Farku over here. Don't steal my memes, please. I'm with you, man. I need those.
Yeah, it's a struggle. I mean, he'll steal all your memes. Farku, this creature will go into your brain.
Take every meme.
And then you'll take
end up a very strange Obelix. And then end up a very weird Obelix.
Well, no, he'll just show a baby Obelix, and then you'll have mini Farku. Anywho, let's move on to our next monster, because I could just talk about how much I love the Obelix.
Yeah, we could go on this forever.
But let's talk about an actual demon lord. What?
Yes. I wanted to pick at least one of the really big guys that I thought had a lot of potential. And the one I picked was my favorite demon lord. I guess it was a biased choice. But I also think he's the most accessible of the demon lords, if that makes sense. And that is Fraz Blue, who is the demon prince of deception. You can see him on screen now. He is a giant kind of stone gargoyle kind of thing, but he has the ability to change his appearance at will.
So is it really a stone gargoyle thing?
Yeah. It's my answer. It's just yes.
Okay.
So the reason I picked Fraz, I guess there's a lot of reasons I picked Fraz, partly because I love him, but I think unlike everybody else, or not even unlike all of the other ones, because they're all very intelligent, but Fraz is the most intelligent of demon lords. And I think he is so unfathomably intelligent that he is actually a little bit easier to play than some of the other demon lords, if that makes sense. Because when it's a 20 intelligence, that's like, oh, well, they're very smart and they're going to outthink you. But with Fraz, it's like, you can just kind of justify even the stupid things that he says, even his mistakes are part of some kind of greater plan that if he makes a mistake, he made that mistake on purpose. He has a 26 intelligence. So another thing about Fraz is part of his lore is that he's the demon prince of deception. And the way he kind of gets his followers is by appearing to them in some of these other forms. Like as Echo the Winds mentioned, change appearance at will. I feel intense paranoia. That is exactly correct. He can disguise himself, for example, to a bunch of wizards as an arch-wizard, and will just use them, give whatever magic or kind of short-term power that they desire, and eventually just trick them and corrupt them to his own ends, steal their souls, what have you. And one of the other things about Fraz is that he has this kind of grand idea, this cosmic, that he understands this cosmic plan. So the other thing about Fraz is you can throw him at a low-level party and have him just impersonating, like he could be impersonating a farmhand in a town, and they have no idea why he would be doing this and acting on such a small scale, but he does. So you have this interesting opportunity to introduce the characters to this high-level demon, this incredibly endgame monster at the beginning.
One of the things I really love about that is when they're talking about Fraz Blue, they mention that in the lore, he gets really into character and can sometimes forget that he's acting, which is just amazing. I love that this ultra powerful demon lord is masquerading as a farmer and has just kind of gotten so into character.
I picture him having a wife and children that he loves.
Yeah, exactly.
Because time means nothing to him.
And then he's a demon lord.
And then he's a demon lord. At one point, like something happened. He's just like, oh yes, this was why I did this. I'm done now. I can leave forever.
Has come to fruition. I love the idea for Frazzer Blue, right? That he can like pierce the veil. That there is some actual reality beyond the reality you know, and that Fraz can see it. I just think that's like, yeah, Farku could be a demon lord. Like, shrug emoji. You could be Frazzer Blue. For all we know, Frazzer Blue,
demon lord of epic cosplay in theater.
Frazzer Blue came to our material plane, founded Wizards of the Coast. No, actually, he's Gary Gygax, founded TSR, got all the way to now so that he could increase people who would worship Frazzer Blue on this material plane via the release of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes.
Yes.
I don't know. I like to believe
the world will never know.
But yeah,
another thing I want to highlight about him is his lair actions. He has two I really love. He lives in this really elaborate lair, and there's all kinds of stuff there. I could talk forever about it. We don't have time to go into everything. But he has two really cool lair actions. One of his, he causes up to 5 doors within the lair to become walls, and an equal number of doors to appear on walls where there previously was none. So basically what I hear when I read that is Frazzer Blue is uncatchable in his lair. You cannot find Frazzer Blue if he is in his own domain. The other thing I love that he can do, and this is the coolest lair action I've ever seen them give anyone, come at me if you think there's a cooler one than this, and that is Frazzer Blue chooses a humanoid within the lair and instantly creates a simulacrum of that creature, as if with the simulacrum spell, it obeys his commands and is destroyed on the next initiative count. Which means for one turn, every other round, he can just have one of your party fighting against you. And it's just, part of it is the power of that is very high, and you can do a lot. Like, you get a turn on a paladin, you're going to drop a bunch of divine smites into someone, but it's also the confusion. They don't know what they're doing. Like, your party thinks that the paladin has turned on them. The party thinks that the wizard has run off down a different corridor and has led them into like another trap within his lair. It's such a cool fight. Frazzer Blue is a campaign.
I really love the idea, right, of like Frazzer Blue. The final battle with Frazzer Blue has been like super intense. You've been making your way up to his lair, and these simulacrums of yourself have been harrying you, and it's intense and brutal. And then you get to Frazzer Blue, and it's just a Scooby-Doo adventure, everyone running through different doors. Just
yeah, cue Benny Hill.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just the scale of Frazzer, like I said, like that was one of the things we talked about. It's like you have the Eidolon, which is a dungeon. You have the Oblex, which is like an arc. Frazzer Blue is a campaign.
Agreed. I mean, another thing I love about Fraz, right? You look at this guy, and even as a gargoyle, he's pretty cool looking. Like a huge stone gargoyle, still really cool, still really intense, in my humble opinion, at least.
I agree. I like the grin.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of knowing. One of the great things I talk about in Fraz's lore is his penchant to actually help demon hunters, right? To go into the prime material plane and help those who help paladins who want to go hunt demons. Frazzer Blue, of course, with a 20-something with an absurd intelligence, is undetectable by any divination magics, including divine sense, and so he can trick those paladins no problem. But yeah, I just love the lore that he goes into the world and he helps other demon hunters against his fellow demons, just corrupt them and slowly cause them to do horrible, atrocious things on their quest to get rid of the demons. It's just so good.
Oh god, I love what Roger Twy just said. Yeah, I remember defeating Fraz. He has modified memory. Oh, that's so good. All right, that's all I got for Fraz. I love him. I mean, again, like the Oblex, I could talk about. There's just so much to talk about with him. But
the real question when you're fighting Frazzer Blue is just like, what is actually real? And I just think that's
why did he want to fight me? Like,
yeah, Frost chose to fight me. Why is that? Like, what happened? Anyway, so let's jump over to our last beastie for tonight. It is the Lonely. The Lonely is one of the Sorrowsworn from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. It is an absolutely terrifying beastie.
he's a very spooky. This is one of the creepiest monsters I've seen Wizards release.
Yeah, he's not a friend. I would definitely not refer to him.
What were you?
Yeah, I'm aware. Yeah, no, I don't know. He's just real cool. I'm gonna move him so you can actually see the whole Lonely. You're not gonna see a ton of Pete after this, but that's
No.
fine. Goodbye forever, Pete.
No, don't do this to me.
The Lonely actually looks like this. He is terrifying. The Sorrowsworn, the idea behind them is they are pure embodiments of negative emotions. They come from the Shadowfell, which is a plane of negative energy and kind of dismay. And they are the culmination of all of these horrible, sad, lonely, wretched, angry emotions that kind of come into being. This is the Lonely. The Lonely is fucking terrifying. Echo the Winds, you're right. The Lonely, that's scary. He's got these two huge hooked arms and hooked legs. And what's great about this creature, its mechanics help to tie in to what the creature is and does. So exactly, or like Nate, big ol' hug, that's what those arms are for. Those arms have a 60-foot reach. They're still melee attacks.
Oh my God.
They just stretch. And he stabs you and pulls you toward him because he's so lonely. I mean, look at his face. He's crying. Poor guy.
He just wants you next to him.
Exactly. He just wants to be hanging out. But yeah, like, I don't know. This creature, to me, is such a cool monster.
Such a strong blend of mechanics and flavor.
It's viscerally terrifying. Like, the idea that you run into this thing is just the worst ever. Like, there's nothing worse than that.
I feel like you run into the Lonely, crying in a corner in the Shadowfell with his back to you, legs kind of tucked up so you can't quite see the points yet. Just this kind of like gray, hairless thing that's just kind of crying to himself. Like,
and you don't just attack a thing that's crying, which, I mean, from now on you do. From now on, if you hear something cry, you kill it. But
then just like the slow head turn, and then he stands up on the pointy legs. Just does he speak a language? Oh, he speaks common. Oh, that's the worst. He speaks regular language.
Give me a hug. I don't know.
Oh my God, I can think of so many. There's so many ways you can roleplay that.
That's all it is. It's just pure abject nightmare fuel. It is a thing of nightmare. There's not much more to say than that.
It's hard to creep out players in D&D. Like, it's not easy to actually get that kind of like reaction out of someone. I think the Lonely is one of the few monsters in the game that has the potential to kind of evoke that. I do not want. Like,
it's like the black tears. And one of the unfortunate things about the Lonely is, without this picture, I feel like it's less terrifying because the picture is just so good. The art is so good for this monster. But yeah, I mean, one of the things I really love, right, is that just the mechanics of the Lonely are so reflective of what it is. It's got its big hug. I think it's got like a scream or something. I had it right on here.
Yeah, it's got like a it's got a big hug. It's got the psychic leech. Yeah.
Creatures around it take damage at the beginning of their turn. They have to make wisdom saves. So it's like its tears and misery physically hurt you, which is just amazing. It has advantage on attacks on creatures within 30 feet of it because it thrives on company, which is just amazing. I love the idea of this sad creature. You find it just crying, and then it just is suddenly excited and happy, and it's like, friends! And then it stabs you through the heart with the spear, and then you die.
And then he's sad immediately after.
Yeah, he's real sad after. It also hits like a truck.
It thrives on company.
It hits pretty hard. At least it feels like it does to me. I fought this thing once. And
Jeremy, you'd also mentioned that you wanted to do the Wretched. Do you want to talk about the Wretched a little bit?
I don't have a good picture for the Wretched, so we're going to go back to the main screen for that. Just very briefly, another one of the Sorrowsworn is the Wretched. I don't know if you're familiar with the Wretched, Pete, or viewers, but if you are, basically, the Wretched are these tiny little naked chicken creatures with huge lamprey teeth mouth things. They are the worst.
That's kind of it.
That's really it. They're an interesting creature to fight, even though they're only CR 1/4. They are really weird, right? Because they're a monster that scales really well. Even at super high levels, the Wretched are still terrifying. Because what they do when they hit you, they bite onto you and they latch onto you. And once they're latched onto you, the only way to get them off is to kill them. And they have pack tactics if you're latched on. They deal automatic damage every single turn if they're latched onto you. They have resistance to damage if in dim light or darkness, just all damage, or I'm sorry, bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage specifically. Doesn't matter if it's magical, they still have resistance to it. They have a really high AC for a low level creature. These things are just very, very frightening. I think they're way more powerful than a CR 1/4, but the big thing about them is your level 20 barbarian's like, ha, I'm invincible. Gets attacked by like 40 Wretcheds, dies. Because at the beginning of his turn, he's got 30 Wretcheds hanging from him and takes 30 D10 plus 30 necrotic damage, which just kills him. These things are truly horrifying. I love the idea that, like, they don't talk about where these come from. Oh, sorry, yeah?
Oh, no, I was just laughing at what Deeper got and said, add some foul screeching.
But I don't know, they don't really talk a ton about where these creatures come from, but I like the idea that the Wretched are truly just like the remnants of wretched souls. This is what happens when you are truly pitiful enough. This is what happens to your body when you become a skulk. You become one of these.
That's the worst.
Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, that's more or less the Beastiary. This is the first time we've done one of these monster review kind of talk about things. So, you know, every time is a learning experience, but I thought it went okay. Those monsters are pretty cool. Let us know how you felt, what you want us to do with more DnDTime Talks in the future. Because we're kind of wondering what direction you guys want to see us go.
Yeah, we are probably done with Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. We've gone through all the chapters. We kind of covered the things we most wanted to do in the Beastiary. But for sure, let us know if you have ideas for what you want us to talk about next week. We could... me and Jeremy had discussed a little bit, like if people were into the monster thing, we could go back and do some of the monsters.
Next week, I'm not going to be available.
Oh, so yes, that is right.
There will be no DnDTime Talks. But after that, the next week.
Yes, so you got plenty of time to think about what you think we should do. But let us know what you think.
Yeah, the best way to let us know is either by adding us on Twitter, that's DnD_time, or jumping onto our Discord and letting us know there. It's way better to let us know on Discord. It's a lot easier to follow. Pete actually gets it because Pete doesn't pay any attention to the Twitter. So yeah, Discord's the way to go. Link below the stream. And stay tuned. We're going to have some interesting updates for DnDTime, our Friday show, pretty soon. Pete and I still need to iron out a few more things, but we've got some small changes.
Some stuff.
Improvements.
And I think that's it. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming and hanging out and listening to us babble about things that we love.
I did a lot of babbling today.
Oh, I did too.
Shame.
That
and
is
especially Mr. Plunderloot for your 4 months of support. We super appreciate it.
Indeed. Thank you.
We do this because we love Dungeons and Dragons, and we love talking about Dungeons and Dragons and playing Dungeons and Dragons and everything Dungeons and Dragons, and we love you, Twitch chat. I just said that out loud.
It's because it's true. We love you. That's all I got. I'm Pete.
Well, tune in Friday for Pete and Jeremy's DnDTime, 6 p.m. Pacific. It's really cool. 3 1-hour one-shot adventures set in our fantastic world of DnDTime. And on Sunday, we're going to be doing DnDTime Brews, a cool stream where Pete and I homebrew stuff for Pete and Jeremy's DnDTime. That's all I've got to hype. I'm Jeremy.
And this is